Senti a Roma. Listen to Rome. Today, a saxophone blows rouge over the cobblestones. Hear the faded yellows of accordion, guitar, and hand-tinted songs spool across the piazza. There, bells peal gold and umber onto the rooftops. Later, fluted silver tones blend with dancing green fountain song, aqua verde con verdi, until sapphire falls quiet from the night sky. Senti a Roma. Tonight, a small brass tingle of stars. Welcome to everyone leaning in right now, listening in from all kinds of everywhere, to the 22nd Floating Poetry broadcast in this ongoing weekly series, coming to you live again from the Ocean State, from Rhode Island, by the sea, the revealing sea. This is your poet and poetorialist, Colin Goedecke, tonight inviting you each and all to enter places of surprise, being surprised by life, turns of events, by others, by nature, dreams, ideas, by yourself, by a twist of fate, a stroke of fortune, an experience of serendipity, or maybe synchronicity. Let's wander and wonder into these interesting waters, beginning with some thoughts of mine and others on the theme, then a soupçon of chosen poems. And I was casting around thinking about surprise and wondering what others had to say about it, and I was curious what Wikipedia actually had to say about it. Surprise as an emotion, a startled response, experienced by animals and humans as the result of an unexpected event. Surprise represents the difference between expectations and reality, the gap between our assumptions and expectations about worldly events and the way that those events actually turn out. This gap can be deemed an important foundation on which new findings are based, since surprises can make people aware of their own ignorance, or I'd rather say unawareness. Always the opportunity to become ever more aware. So, dear listeners, surprise. When were you greatly surprised in your own life? When did you terrifically surprise yourself or someone else? And how did it feel in your body, in your psyche? What do you like most about being surprised? How has love surprised you, or an experience of nature, natural wonder, or a stirring conversation, or an unexpected revelation? You know, I'm definitely taken by surprises, no surprise to being a poet, by great and small surprises daily, just going to the ocean as I do, and the always amazing theater of the sky, the clouds, the sea. I walk up a small boardwalk every morning, and there it is. The curtain goes up, and I'm fascinated. It's endlessly surprising, amazing, interesting. And then what the sea has made, like the image you're actually seeing right now, the sort of faceplate for this evening's broadcast is Calder-like. I didn't make that. That was the sea that made it. I was able to see the image of a rabbit or hare standing on his hind legs right in front of me, made by the sea, but not by a man. To that, I find that wonderfully surprising. I've actually got a whole bestiary, a whole zoo of animals and creatures, insects and other things that have been made by the sea, and these portraits or shapes of things. Well, that's just, how about that? Sometimes being surprised by a new passage of music that you're sitting in a concert or on your own somewhere that strikes a big chord inside you, or a scene from a movie that years or decades later evokes some powerful felt memory that you didn't know was waiting to be released. Or the experience of a painting that's incredible. Like years back, I walked into a gallery, quiet, it was just me, Jane Wilson, landscape painter, semi-abstract, but clearly seascapes. I turned the corner into this one room, and there was a massive painting of one of her seascapes. And my breath literally got taken away. It was so amazing. I was taken so aback. It was one of the most extraordinary memories of my life. So for an artist to do that, how about that? Surprises we know, or will know, can be such moments of illumination, of wonder, sometimes consternation, for sure, but always something that causes us to pause, to take things in exceptionally, whether they're visceral or emotional or spiritual or otherwise. I see them all of them as invitations to discovery or uncovering or recovering of our inner and outer self, of deeper layers of life and feeling, to enter places of awe and joy, resonance and innocence, to embrace all the magic and mystery that surrounds us. The surprises help us do that, to keep us fresh and more alive and more curious. Funny, there was a expression from way back in time in Vermont, for any Vermonters listening in, and the expression of surprise there was, "Oh, fish hooks!" Exclamation of surprise, according to an old dictionary of American regional English. Pablo Neruda, marvelous Chilean poet, the surprise of a great childhood event and memory that profoundly influenced not only his poetry, but his understanding of art and life. And surprises can be that transporting. So he said one time, investigating the backyard of our house in Temuco, the tiny objects and minuscule beings of my world, I came upon a hole in one of the boards of the fence. I looked through the hole and saw a landscape like that behind our house, uncared for and wild. I moved back a few steps because I sensed vaguely that something was about to happen. All of a sudden, a hand appeared, a tiny hand of a boy about my own age. By the time I came close again, the hand was gone, and in its place there was a marvelous white sheep. The sheep's wool was faded, its wheels had escaped. All of this only made it more authentic. I had never seen such a wonderful sheep. I looked back through the hole, but the boy had disappeared. I went into the house and brought out a treasure of my own, a pine cone, opened, full of odor and resin, which I adored. I set it down in the same spot and went off with the sheep. He never saw the hand nor the boy it belonged to again. The lamb toy perished in a fire years later. But that boyhood encounter, with the simplicity of its symbolism, impressed upon him a lifelong learning. The second he grasped that faded wool lamb, he grasped a deep truth about the longing for mutuality that impels us to make art. Wow, how marvelous. The writer and artist Ella Sanders wrote, "A sense of wonder can find you in many forms, sometimes loudly, sometimes as a whispering, sometimes even hiding inside other feelings, being in love or unbalanced or blue. For me, it is looking at the night for so long that my eyes ache and I'm stuck seeing stars for hours afterwards, watching the way the ocean sways itself to sleep, or as the sky washes itself in colors for which I know I will never have the words. A world made from layers of rock and fossil and glittered imaginings that keeps tripping me up, demanding I pay attention to one leaf at a time, ensuring I can never pick up quite where I left off." Thank you, Ella Sanders, wherever you may be today. Blaise Cendrars, back in time, French writer and adventurer, big adventurer. I've read a number of his books, and I love this quote that he wrote which inspired the poem I read last broadcast on the astonished man, l'homme foudroyé. And he said, writing sets ablaze a whole pandemonium of ideas, illuminating a chain of images before reducing them to crackling embers and crumbling ash. But though the flames set off the alarm, the spontaneity of the outbreak remains a mystery. For to write is to be burned alive, but it is also to be reborn from the ashes. And I could say for me, and I think other writers and poets, novelists and others, that that's part of the surprise of being such an artist. Terry Tempest Williams wrote, perhaps it is not so much what we learn that matters in these moments of awe and wonder, but what we feel in relationship to a world beyond ourselves, even beyond our own species. And she was contemplating what draws 300 million visitors a year to America's national parks, or did. Obviously, not right now, but that's quite something. She also said, each breaking wave, each rush of the sea on the slope of sand reminds me why these places of pilgrimage matter. They matter to me because in the long view, I do not. I am driftwood. I am rockweed. I am osprey and the mackerel in the clutch of her feet. I am a woman standing on the edge of the continent, looking out. Thank you, Terry Tempest Williams. And our man, David White, speaks about the surprise of the soul. He calls it, in this particular commentary, our subversive soul. The soul is a planner's nightmare, the career counselor's central puzzle, the biographer's conundrum, the saboteur of the puritanical and the unimaginative, an internal abiding spring that is both a source and a flow, an internal stranger at the door of our outer life, about to break everything apart, a pilgrim self, often suddenly more in love with the horizon than its home, and most disturbingly, someone who might much rather fail spectacularly at their own life than succeed drably at someone else's. Thank you, David White. That was some of his late summer thoughts of this year, this pandemic year, this strange year, full of other kinds of surprises, not all welcome, obviously, for some of us, or many of us, but interesting and challenging and, I guess in their way, compelling. Annie Lamott, writer, we see this toward the end of many people's lives, when everything in their wasted bodies fights to stay alive for a few more kisses or bites of ice cream, one more hour with you. Life is still flowing through them. Life is them. That's magic, or the human spirit, or hope, whatever you want to call it, to captivate, to share contented time. And for me, that's part of the surprise of life, is that we're able to carry on and long for and go for those things that can still illuminate us, no matter where we are in our life or how old or what's happening. There's so much illumination, always possible, always. Just one more quote, and then we'll dip into some poems. This is Ian Leslie, author, from his book The Desire to Know Why the Desire to Know and Why Your Future Depends on It. It's all about curiosity. For most of Western history, it has been regarded as at best a distraction, at worst a poison, corrosive to the soul and to society. There's a reason for this. Curiosity is unruly. It doesn't like rules, or at least it assumes that all rules are provisional, subject to the laceration of a smart question nobody has yet thought to ask. A society that values order above all else will seek to suppress curiosity, but a society that believes in progress, innovation, and creativity will cultivate it, recognizing that the inquiring minds of its people constitute its most valuable asset. So I say, up with curiosity. Celebrate it, pursue it, embody it. Let's all collectively bring forth far more curiosity than today. So, a handful of poems for us. this evening. And I thought maybe we begin with a poem about surprisingly sacred moments, small s, encounters, experiences. This is one I had in the Adirondacks back in Keene Valley in summer of 2015 on Chapel Pond, the Rocky Peak Ridge. Chapel Pond. It's called Chapel Pond. There is a kind of holiness here, an enveloping stillness, a sacred space fragrant with innocence, an unman-made shrine of pure waters, woods, rock faces, and sunlight, dappled, rippling shade, to bless the body in, refresh the body in. So when I stand on the near bank to dry, warm, and behold you backstroking through the middle of the quarry dark, quarry deep water, I'm not surprised to see the sun gild your sleek head and set your long, outspread arms alight into angel wings. Chapel Pond. The surprise of magicality, which I always feel about, and around the moon. Maybe you also. Very magical. It's like seeing dolphins the other day. Someone told me there were dolphins swimming nearby, people in the water. It's called Once Upon a Time. Once upon a time the moon rose to the waterline, but caught by a great gust of wind, instead of rising, rolled right across the horizon to the surprise of all the fish and fishermen, like a glowing bowling ball. Once upon a time. Surprising things have happened to us all. How about places that surprise and inspire and intrigue us and maybe continuously surprise us? So I have a very dear friend, a soul sister in Chelsea, New York, who lives in the most amazing house. I call it the House of Wonder. It's a layer cake of endless surprises. Endless. I don't think I could ever get to the bottom of them all. It was the home for 60 plus years of a very famous artist, collector, painter, poet, Renaissance man, and it was left to her very, very generously, and she's been its steward ever since, and I've spent a long time there on and off and otherwise, and I call it the House of Wonder. This is the poem in honor of the House of Wonder for Tabita. A layer cake of A layer cake of lifelong creating and collecting. 6 stories filled with curiosities from the world's corners and cultures, and the work of the rampant hands and motive heart of the now absent but felt present artist over half a century later. 6 stories and the confecting of wars, histories, ponderings, and pieces later. Frosted with iron and oil paint, stones and poetry, fabrics and relics. A house of never-ending wonder, hidden so quietly, so stilly amid the rush and thunder of the surrounding city. An undiscovered creation, a kind of prestidigitation floating here, brimming with buried treasures, all waiting to be found. The House of Wonder. You know, I mentioned earlier things like paintings that surprise us. And years back in the Museum of Modern Art, in 1998 actually, New York, there was a painting that took me completely aback. It set me ablaze. It was an experience of painting by Bonnard, The Large Yellow Nude, 1931. So this is on Bonnard's Large Yellow Nude. I wonder how much sun she drank to become this luminous, 4 bottles or 6, and how much he used to soak his brushes with and bask the room in which she reflects in her air blue shoes on this Le Canet day. Marvelous painting. If you ever have a chance to see it online or in person, absolutely marvelous and special, and definitely highly luminous. moments of perpetual surprise. So how about the things that continuously surprise us, even though we see them over and over and over again? And I had a cottage by the seaside in East Hampton, out on the South Fork of Long Island for a number of years, and I would take my bicycle or walk or drive nearby to beautiful Egypt Beach, my favorite beach, and I'd go up this one small road through this golf course, and as you come over the top, there was always the ocean would appear, and every single time for years, every time I did it, was a great surprise. It's called Old Beach Lane, at least a little honoring of that. Cresting the hill into deep blue sea, a moment of recurring revelation where ocean meets earth and fills any body with simple wonder, with a silent, fathomless, soul-satisfying sigh. I love reading that to you tonight because I'm there again. You know, these are all touchstones for me, and as I go through a curation of things for each broadcast, I'm taken back to so many moments and places and feelings and surprises. Like this one of the imagination in the Lewantica Woods back in New Jersey, out Morristown Way. So the surprise of our imaginings. And I saw this scene, it made me think of druids, hence the poem, Like Druids. On a bright winter day, a cerulean sky, off an oft-trodden path winding through a gold leaf-matted weald, a silent procession of druid-like figures. I see the last three, who file behind the upturned base of a long-fallen birch, whose roots are bared like broken veins at the surface of the still-clinging soil. Tree people of this place, wooden, weather-beaten. One paused, limbs raised, in supplication or joyous appreciation to the sun. The next, eager to reach a sacred solar ceremony. The third, tall, conically hatted, staff in wind-smooth hand. A seasoned veteran, long wise to the ways of the earth and spirit world, who completes the curious train and scene I witness from a slight, imagined, illuminated distance. One of the things I thought about in terms of surprise was the helping hands in our lives that we get often very unexpectedly from friends, but especially sometimes from strangers or people we don't know that well, out of pure caring, pure altruism. So think of your experiences. I'll share one of mine, but I'd like you to muse on that. Those are some of the best surprises in life, and we can't count on them or ask for them, but they do happen when we're open, when we invite them. It's called a leg up, and it's in honor of all of those who've come forth and been helping hands to me in my life of different kinds. We've been given so many in our life, so many helping hands, warmly welcoming arms, at times of our life when we couldn't go it or bear it or figure it out alone. Generous, loving, sometimes surprising legs up that enabled us, empowered us to get to a next essential place, help to be grateful for, to return in any kind to others, wherever, however we can. I want to read you maybe another time a poem about actually food and cultivation and cultures, altiplano, but I think I'm going to drop that out because I don't want us to run too late tonight. I like to keep it, shorter than longer. So let me speak to us and offer us a thought about the surprise of the animal kingdom and your experiences of animals and what they've surprised about you or in you or around you. I love this moment I had sometime back in an old estate in New Jersey that I walked often, calmly, quietly, musingly. It's called Follow Me, Says the Fox, is the title. As I wend to the bottom of the wide tree-ring circle toward the path winding back to the beginning, I see the figure of a young fox. at a right angle to my eye. He looks my way, hesitates till I advance, more his, then walks ahead. As I decide to walk respectfully behind, he pauses every few minutes, turning to see where I am, as if inviting me to follow him, stay in his ambling wake, which I do, even as we round the bend into the gold winter light and cold shadows of the lengthening afternoon. We travel single file down the gentle hill, where a soft field of pale reeds feathers to the left. This time, when he stops, I also pause, wait for him to continue, then resume our silently agreed pace, 3 times each, to be sure, or, I feel, to explore. Curiously, last, he decides to step onto the strand of grass beside the woods and lie down, his rust and white face facing me. I go down instinctively on my haunches in a friendly, mirroring manner, and we watch each other, breathe with each other for a good while. I imagine he'd like to know more about me or show me his home. Then we stand together, he on all fours, me on my 2. He lets me approach, gets surprisingly close, and moves only slightly toward a curtain of brush and trees, looking back over his shoulder all the while with an inquiring expression, "Will you join me?" Until a man on wheels pedals up from below and the lovely fox slips away, out of view, out of our story. "Follow me," says the fox. Well, I'd love to have followed him. In my imagination, I followed him beyond. The surprise of a last living breath, and I had a wonderful cat, a tomcat. I had 2 cats, one a beautiful Abyssinian in my life, and one was a big white tomcat with the eraser pink nose and big saucer eyes. And at one point he was so old, and that was it for him, and took him to the vet. Vet said we have to put him down. It was very sad, and this was the experience that happened that surprised me greatly and wonderfully. It's called The Last Roar, and his name was Giovanni, the gatto, the cat. Innocent to the end, a day when the whiteness of your great age overtook you, and you slowed your usual motions and fell so quiet when we left the house, I keeping my hand on your warm back while we waited, talking to you gently, once I knew what seemed best to do. You resting your soft head in my open palm, then nestling safe in my wife's arriving arms while they sent you on to sleep. But just before you closed your candle-bright eyes forever, you rose, rampant, to everyone's surprise, to give one last roar, then a final breath like falling snow, and the soaring away of your spirit and wondrous pink nose. The last roar. What a surprise. Oh, never forget it. Lives in me. Like the certain surprises live in each of us, eh? All right. So, coming to the very end of this evening, be with me, 2 last pieces for us. One by Kenneth Rexroth, poet of great note to me, about surprising life epiphanies, the surprise of those, and both the fleeting and the enduring. This poem by him, Lute Music, L-U-T-E, Lute Music. The earth will be going on a long time before it finally freezes. Men will be on it. They will take names, give their deeds reasons. We will be here only as chemical constituents. A small franchise indeed. Right now we have lives, corpuscles, ambitions, caresses, like everybody had once. Here at the year's end, at the feast of birth, let us bring to each other the gifts brought once west through deserts, the precious metal of our mingled hair, the frankincense and enraptured arms and legs, the myrrh of desperate, invincible kisses. Let us celebrate the daily, recurrent nativity of love, the endless epiphany of our fluent selves, while the earth rolls away under us into unknown snows and summers, into untraveled spaces of the stars. Thank you, Kenneth Rexroth, and the surprise of the unknown. So, to the end here, I have two, but I might just read one of these. They're both short. The Arriving Angel, it's from my Behind the Curtain show, was traveling about, will continue at some point. So, the surprise of a transcendent presence around us, and maybe we can invite this kind of presence in our challenging times right now, and challenging days and lives and individual inner places. For me, this moment is the experience of an angel, and I do believe those presences exist of some kind. So this is the Arriving Angel, an invocation or an affirmation or a reminder for us. The Arriving Angel hears you in the dark night of your soul, in your doubting, in your fearing, unknowing, is here for you, has arrived to guide and protect you, enfold you, affirm you in the safety and epiphany of his heavenly wings. Thank you again for leaning in, and in these pandemically trying times, helping support these programs and my poetic arts with your donations. Contributions of any kind are greatly welcome and easily made by PayPal and Venmo and directly through my site. As always, I invite your thoughts, your questions, and hearing about how these broadcasts resonate. Most of all, thank you for your enthusiasm and for sharing with others word of these, I hope, evoking offerings. Replays are online. I hope you'll lean in again. Until then, dear listeners, good days ahead, days of fine surprises and good spirits.